We're now live on YouTube.
Thanks, Katie. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our January 10th, 2022 meeting. Happy New Year to everyone. Katie, can we begin with roll call?
Yes. Mr. Antonio?
Here.
Mr. Badger? Mr. Bleefeld?
Here.
Ms. Chiavacci?
Here.
Mr. Frank?
Here.
Mrs. Heyman?
Here.
Ms. Karionikis?
Here.
Dr. Morris?
Here.
Mrs. Ginsburg?
Here.
And I see Mr. Badger has joined on Zoom. So 9 present, 0 absent. And Morgan Wilson.
Here.
And 1 student rep this evening.
Thanks, Katie. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Again, I'd like to say welcome to everyone to this January 10th meeting. Looking at our agenda, number 2 has a list of all of our prior meetings. Number 3 lists our upcoming meetings. And then going down to number 4, we have a couple presentations this evening. First, we have the North Monco Technical Career Center's National Technical Honor Society.
Okay, thank you. Tonight we have the opportunity to recognize and celebrate some students that we have. We just loved all the students who go to the Technical Career Center. And we're very proud of all of them. And now we have students who, in addition to that, have made it their business to get themselves onto the national, shall we say, the Technical Honor Society, which means all of the skills they're acquiring and all of the hard work they're doing at the school, in addition to tremendous academic success. So this is a really awesome evening for us every year. And it's a privilege to introduce to everybody the principal of Wissahickon High School, Dr. Lynn Blair, who will tell us a little bit more about our students.
Thanks, Dr. Chrisfield. Thank you for inviting us again. We're very excited to highlight these great students. Thomas and Adriana, I see you guys on here. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations. You look great. So we'll start off with Thomas. Thomas Bridges is currently enrolled in the culinary program at North Monco Tech School. He was recognized as Student of the Month in November for his consistent hard work, his academic success, and leadership skills. Thomas enjoys the working in a professional environment and cooking in an actual commercial kitchen. His family is happy to reap the benefits of his learning. The skills he has learned in the culinary program, I hear he applies and practices at home. So Thomas, I'm coming over for dinner after this meeting. I'll see you. Thomas's plan is to continue his studies at a post-secondary culinary school with the ultimate goal of owning his own restaurant. So my only question for you, Thomas, is do I have to, as your former principal, make a reservation, or do I get an automatic in? I think automatic in. Fair? Okay. Savannah Johnson did not join us this evening, but Savannah Johnson is a full-time cosmetology student at North Monco in the PIAP program. Savannah has excelled throughout high school and has recently been awarded a series of multiple college acceptances. Multiple. How great does that sound? Savannah plans to enroll this next year at Lincoln University, focusing on business management in the fall of 2022. Outside of school, Savannah continues to work part-time, balancing school, her work, and her personal life. Savannah plans to use her business degree after college to help her open and operate her own salon. Again, same question I have for Thomas. I'm wondering if I get automatic appointments from her as well. Sean Nardi is also not with us this evening, but he is a junior and full-time computer integrated machining student at the tech school, also in the PIAP program. Sean has excelled throughout high school and was just nominated to be Student of the Month in December. From machine operating to programming, Sean is incredibly diligent in his coursework, adhering to safety protocols and proper operation of tools. His teachers at the tech school are equally impressed by his commitment and excellence. Sean is currently exploring post-secondary options to further his education and skills. We're very proud of Sean. And last but not least, Adriana O'Donnell is currently enrolled in the health sciences program at the tech school. She has future plans to continue her education at either a 2- or 4-year institution, working toward a career as a dentist or a dental hygienist. Adriana, I'm not asking you for any appointments because I don't really want to visit you as much. Adriana is a hardworking individual who never stops smiling, which is probably a requirement for a dental program. She has proven to be a very strong, resilient, and mature student. We're very proud of all four of them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blair, and congratulations to all of you on that amazing accomplishment. And, I had a similar question about whether we would need appointments or not. I don't know if anybody else tried the food at the North Monaco back in December. I don't know if Tom was involved in cooking that, but it was amazing. But thank you. Congratulations to all of you. Anyone else have any comments? Want to say anything? Yep. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Blair.
Thank you.
All right. Well, our next presentation this evening is the Wissahickon High School monthly highlights, and we have Morgan with us.
Yes, hi everyone. We also have Carly as well, who will be jumping in. We would first like to start off by congratulating our WHS Students of the Month for December 2021. Congratulations everyone on their hard work. We would also like to let everyone know about the commencement for the class of 2022, which will be held on Thursday, June 9th at 6 p.m. Most students should have their caps and gowns and tassels ordered already, but if not, you can still do so. On to the next. Congratulations to Cam Bloomberg. Cam had his photography work, love for the game, accepted into Drexel University's juried high school photography exhibition. This annual competition is open to high school students across the country, and it is a prestigious honor to have your work accepted. We are so proud of Cam. Cam's work featuring LeBron James will be held on display in Drexel's photography gallery from January 29th through February 27th. The opening reception is on Saturday, January 29th from 1 to 3 p.m. Congratulations to Cam. Congratulations to another one of our students, Dominic Joseph. Dom is bringing home the gold. He recently won the North American Cup Cadet Men's Foil in Columbus, Ohio. This is a national level event where fencers from the United States, Canada, Mexico, China, Japan, and South Korea compete in the North American Cup. Hundreds of fencers started out competing, and after countless eliminations, 10 hours later, Dom was declared the North American Cup champion. Dom has dedicated so much of his time, energy, and heart into his work, and he deserves this honor. We are so proud of you, Dom. On to other great highlights. Our new Indian Cultural Association Club hosted their first Mendi Day. Students from all cultural backgrounds came together to learn about the tradition of Mendi, a dye made from the henna plant. Mendi has been used as a form of body art for thousands of years, and students learned about this history of Mendi and practiced this art together. This new club is dedicated to celebrating Indian heritage and culture within WHS and the greater community through events, programs, and community engagement and services. We would also like to congratulate all of our fall sports SOL all league recognition for all fall league sports. Congratulations to all these students on their hard-earned work on the field /court and in school. We would also like to commend the College Signing Day students for all of their hard dedication throughout all of their years. Congratulations to all of these students on committing to their various colleges. Now let Carly take it from here.
So we also want to congratulate Kevin Lynch, Charlotte Zager, and Ellie Krasnowski for being chosen to represent Wissahickon High School at the 2022 PMEA District Chorus Festival in February. They went through a series of auditions to get the position, so we're super excited for them. And we also wanted to shout out all of our Wissahickon High School winter choral concert performers. On December 7th, the choral ensembles performed beautifully in person, which was very exciting because it was the first in-person performance that large in a very long time. And SAD, WEA, and all of our Wissahickon High School homerooms worked together to collect donations for Toys for Tots. We raised $846 in donations, which is incredible. And students from our AO1 Life Skills program helped out by purchasing toys from Kohl's for the Toys for Tots organization. And finally, WIS hosted its first ever Cultural Exploration Festival on December 11th. Students from various world language honor societies orchestrated the event, and students from the middle school and all the elementary schools had the chance to be exposed to all the 4 cultures and languages featured in the Wissahickon High School World Language Department. Guests enjoyed a variety of fun activities, and the event was a huge success. And again, just congratulations to everyone we mentioned. And we're so proud of everything that Wissahickon has done in the past month and what we can do when we really come together.
Thank you so much, Morgan and Carly. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yeah, Rosetta.
I have a comment. I just want to say congratulations to all of you, the Montco students and all of the students that you just talked about. It just seems like it's an incredible, you guys are an incredible credit to the whole community. So congratulations.
Thank you, Rosetta. Anyone else? No? I will again, thank you so much, Morgan and Carly. All right, then we'll move on to our next presentation, which is on the school security.
Okay, thank you. Tonight's presentation is in response to a number of different requests from board members over the last few weeks to summarize either how we do communications or our sort of our crisis communication plan, and also a look at an uptick in incidents of fighting at both the middle and high school. And there was interest in a sense of what that looked like and perhaps why and what we're doing to address it. So it's basically a 2-pronged presentation. Two distinct parts. There will be both pre-event and during and after event communications. And I think it's very important to make that distinction. You'll see why. And then with regard to the fights in the school, share some data and then how we're responding. So the first with regard to information channels. The most important source we have for intel is the relationships that our staff members forge with our students. And we get quite a bit of information that students are worried about their classmates. They are worried about things they might have seen or heard. And that's how we gather a really large part of our understanding of what could be happening. Also have a really good close working relationship with all 3 police departments, Lower Gwinnett, Indeed, and Whitman and Ambler. And we have one school resource officer in the high school, but we have close relationships with all 3, with individuals in all 3 departments. And that's really helpful. And then we have this tip line, which is also a good source. It's the anonymous tip line that was implemented by the state a couple years ago. It's called Safe to Say Something. We are constantly monitoring this. And what's good about this is it's basically for students. The adults can report tips or information for either the police or the school, but this really helps us intervene in situations where there might be a student thinking about self-harm. That's the majority of the tips that come through Safe to Say, and or it could be harming others. But in any event, we take this, of course, very seriously. It's a very powerful tool. Our students know that they have to use this with a pretty heightened sense of responsibility. It's not to get back at anyone. It's not to bully people. It's really to be used for its purpose, which is to inform us of a possible serious situation. So these things combine to really form a pretty good web of information that comes to us before an event. Now, or I should say on our end, Safe to Say Something phone chain. So that organization calls us and we have a series of people who are guaranteed to answer, and Safe to Say will continue calling until they get a live person 24/7. And then that person is trained as to how to distribute the information on our end. We have what's new, actually, it's called a one-call quick link with the police. So each department, each of our 3 departments has a very similar list of people to call 24/7. And they don't have to think about which school is it, who should get this, is it mental health, is it physical, blah, blah. They just call these numbers, and as soon as they get somebody, our people distribute the information as needed on this end. I think this is a really good, efficient, and also a productive change. And then we have our various methods for internal communications. Once we get information internally, we can use phone. That RUVNA is that software that's really helpful in let's say like a fire drill or a real fire, where we know the whereabouts of every student. And if you're a teacher who has under your care students who are not normally in your class, say, you can report through RUVNA to the front office. So we have a whereabouts of every child. That's really very, very helpful. Externally, we have our normal sources of communication there. Social media doesn't get used too much during a crisis, but texting and phone and certainly email does. So I'm not going to read over all of this. This is our set of protocols during a crisis, during an event. And it starts with things that the main office, the school's main office, will do basically in this order. I mean, obviously, it's the police if their presence is needed, and then it goes down to central office. That third bullet is important. School main office communicates to staff about tactical things. Okay, that has to do with if there's an intruder, where, what to do, real-time information during the crisis, and then if we have to evacuate, that's the same thing. We here at central office will talk to the county if need be. We send things to parents and guardians from here. Can't come from the school in the middle of a crisis. So there's going to be a time delay, the lag. That's just the way it is. Our top priority, of course, is to resolve the situation at the school, and then we'll get information out. So top level, we do not share details at this time. First of all, sharing details in the middle of a crisis could compromise the first responders trying to deal with it. So we might say there is a situation, everybody's safe, or whatever information we have. We also do want to try to copy board members as soon as we can. It might not be instantaneous, but it's very, very quick. And then afterwards, it's the same kind of breakdown. The school main office has things to do, debrief for their staff. Important thing we learned is that our guidance counselors need to communicate cross schools because there could be siblings that might need support. We at central office also have responsibilities afterwards. This is when we can share more details about what happened. Of course, nothing private and nothing that violates anyone's privacy. We do copy parents and guardians and staff in all the schools. One of the things we also learned is that just because an incident happens at one of our schools doesn't mean that everyone else everywhere else doesn't know about it. And this might be the right time to share that we're acutely aware of the power of student text messaging and the immediacy of it. We're late. We know that, of course, students don't use their telephone or their cell phones during the school day normally, but every now and then maybe a text message might get out. And during a crisis, we know we will be the second communication to many, many parents and families. There's nothing we can do about that. And we ask that not many details be shared in that during the time for the same reasons I spoke of. Afterwards, it is our intent to share details as we can, again, to all schools. We might follow up with local police if they were involved to review some tactical maneuvers. We could follow up the county if necessary. And then that bottom line, the students get information from teachers during the event, of course. And then afterwards, it's a combination, depending on the age, of parents, teachers, or also maybe guardians sharing information as in age-appropriate ways. So it's not going to be as immediate there again as everyone might like. During the event, it will be immediate, and that's a priority. afterwards, we follow these steps here and we have some other priorities, but I think it's an important distinction between during the event and after the crisis. So now we're going to switch gears. This is the second part, distinct, unrelated part of this presentation tonight, and it has to do with incidents of fighting. Now, please note that fights are not crisis events that launch that previous series of responsibilities. Okay, it's just not one of those things. I'll have a 3-year incident of fight counts in grades 6 to 12, and you can see the definition of a fight there. It's kind of technical, but here's a 3-year look back, both at the high school and middle school. And a couple points to to highlight. This year is only half a year's worth. So theoretically, if you wanted to, you could maybe double that, and you could see that there are more incidents this year, for sure. Last year might have been an anomaly since many of the days were hybrid or virtual. So this year's count, certainly at the high school, is alarming. It's too high. Something's happening. So there are always incidents of fighting are always concerning, obviously, and especially those that can escalate, and these aren't any exception. One of the things they highlight is the need for increased mental health support services. I mean, that's not just reactive, that's actually preventative in nature, but also afterwards. Same sort of thing is that one of the things educators everywhere were learning about the pandemic is that the need and the value of social emotional learning, of focus both officially in the curriculum and then just generally in relationships, is more important than ever. And perhaps we need to inject more of that, more opportunities for relationship building, belongingness, sense of comfort in the school before, or I should say not before, but throughout the entire day, not just in certain points of it. And this is happening everywhere. We can't go this alone. Okay, we can't provide all of the help that our students need in the schools alone. It's got to be a village, and that includes families, parents. I mean, this is a very real thing across the nation. Any district will tell you the same thing. And so this is going to have to be a concerted community effort to get us back on the right track. So we are responding. Our code of conduct, student code of conduct, does prescribe consequences for those who fight, who are engaged in a fight, and we do apply those. You may not be able to know what those results are because students have rights of privacy, but I can tell you that we apply them exactly as it's spelled out in the code of conduct. This is a piece, though, that I want to highlight. If we want to help and heal the students who engage in this kind of behavior, both now and the future, we're going to have to embrace a restorative discipline mindset, which is to say, punishing for something, okay, doesn't exactly change the behavior in the future. It does have a consequence, and we do have consequences. But our goal here is to heal the student, help the student get past whatever was causing this behavior and to not have it happen in the future. We are responding with mental health supports. And as I said, that the social emotional learning, we have what I would describe as an emergency plan. And this is learning from districts across the nation, different things that can be done now to help the social emotional needs of our students. So that's the formal presentation. I'm sure board members may have a question or two. So
Yes, Jim, if I could start off. So as far as incidents that we report to parents, I know there are some incidents that we don't report. Like, for example, recently, like an ambulance being at the school. But of course, parents, they see the ambulance. Somebody mentions something on social media, then someone's child has texted them, and there's all sorts of, discussion going on online. What can we share with parents as far as what specific types of incidents would get reported to them?
There's not really like I don't know that I could share with you a hard, fast rule on that. So let's use that example of an ambulance coming up. We wouldn't share that necessarily all the time. That, unfortunately, that happens more than you might expect. It could be a student having a situation. It could be somebody falls. I wouldn't think that we send home announcement that an ambulance came today because somebody fell on the playground. So that's a no. However, if somebody gets pulled out on a stretcher and has a very serious health incident, that would be an example of yes. So it kind of depends on that one. On these fights, that's also a judgment call. If the scale is large, then we could, but it wouldn't be necessarily, hey, well, this happened today, and here are the results. It's more like we had another one of these, and here's what we're going to do to fix it. And so it wouldn't be more like alerting of it that it happened, as much as sharing what we're going to do to respond.
And as far as the fights that we have had so far this year, you mentioned that other districts are experiencing the same thing. Have we looked to see what other districts in our area are doing to address this?
Yes, and they're looking at what we're doing, and it's actually kind of a collaborative effort. It's those things we spoke of there. It's a combination of for the short term, helping with the mental health, social emotional needs of the people, of the students, and then in the long term, a very definite embrace of restorative practices versus older sort of versions of punishment.
And one more question, going back to notifications that we send out. So having Lower Gwynedd, the middle school and high school all here on the same campus, I've heard from some parents that, my child may only be at Lower Gwynedd, but I want to know about incidents that happen at the high school as well. Are we making an effort to make sure all three groups are notified if there's an incident in one of the buildings?
We are making an effort to notice actually all 6 schools get the notice. Yeah, I mean, we always try to toe the line between a need to know and a want to know. But what we found is that there is a need for all 6 to eventually get the same information. Otherwise, our friends in social media and elsewhere distribute their version of the information, and then it's like telephone tag.
All right, well, thanks, Jim. Anyone else have any questions? Rosetta?
Yeah, I would just like to know a little bit more about how RUVNA works and what it is.
RUVNA? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. RUVNA is a software package that integrates with our student information system. So with a whole lot of setup, it has every student by ID number and homeroom teachers. And so let's say, again, like a fire drill, if you're a homeroom teacher and you had 23 students normal in your homeroom, the system will know that 3 were absent today. So now we need to know where 20 of your students are right now. And you only see 18 in front of you. That's a problem. Unless your colleagues who grabbed somebody on their way out because they were in the restroom and somebody else was down the hall, they report in. It's not my homeroom, but I've got so-and-so. And all of a sudden that filters in, and then we know that your 20 students today, we don't need to know where the 3 were because they weren't in school, which is another important information. And we know where the 20 are, if not immediately in your care.
Marshall, you had a question?
Yeah, I did have a comment regarding notice issues, and more specifically regarding things that may happen after school or overnight before the school day starts. And I think that's where maybe some of the confusion comes into play, because people hear these things online, social media wise. They may hear something happened overnight. They don't hear anything from the school district. They send the kids to school and they're very much concerned about that, as they should be. What I'd like to see, and I think we're trying to do that, is ensuring that notice goes out before they send the kids off to school. If there was a potential threat, that overnight we had it, we investigated it, we thoroughly determined that there is no credible threat to our students on campus. Of course, we wouldn't have brought them in if we thought there was. And because we have determined that it is not a credible threat, everybody is safe to come to campus today without any fear of any issues. Just I think that would help alleviate some of the anxiety when people send the kid off on a bus and then they get a notice either from us or see something on social media. I think we should try and nip that in the bud as early as possible, even if it's middle of the night, an email that they can open or see that when they're getting ready to walk out the front door, everything is safe to enter campus.
Agree with that. We try as best we can to get it out as fast as we can. There are just some built-in delays, but point's a very good one. But what also brings up though is that we have a hard time chasing everything on social media, honestly. So these information flows that we talked about, whether it be the tip line or maybe the police, those are automatic track downs. And those are, but if somebody sees something on social media, we may or may not see it. It may or may not have already been shared with us. And 150 people may already know about it before it comes to us. That requires some time on our part. So there's these forces that kind of weigh in, but early is better. Yes, agreed.
Okay. And then in regard to the issue of fighting, obviously, I don't think there's any secret that this has a lot to do with the mental health of our kids because of the difficulty they've all had. We've all had over the last 2 years at this point. And I think we really need to make a concerted effort to find a way to either teach or instill in the kids that it's been tough and we understand it and they're going to be okay. We want them to be okay. And instead of harnessing whatever aggression they may have in a certain direction, how do we transmit it or harness it in a different direction? And maybe there's, whether it's an educational program or a community program or a fellow student program, to make, and I don't know what the right word I'm looking for, other than, is there a way to make sure we get to every student to make sure they feel okay? Now, we can't do that in every instance, I know. But if there's a way to say, if the kids see something different in the behavior of a schoolmate, classmate, a friend, and said, they just don't seem right, they seem a little different, and maybe they're hurting, maybe they have something at home, something inside, how do we be a little bit more proactive to say that, especially in these times, we understand and we want to make sure that you're all right? I'd like to see some proactive programming in that regard.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And that also gets to that takes a village, because we see a lot of the student for a lot of their 24/7, but not all of it.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Is someone online?
Zephy, was that?
Zephy. Sorry, it's okay. I could wait.
You can go ahead, Zephy.
Thanks. A couple of questions. So from your presentation, when you talk about safe to say and the responsibility of the students should be responsible about how that's reported, how and when and how often do we help students understand this resource, how to use this resource, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate? How's that built in? And probably it's more built in for middle school and high school, but how is that actually built and instructed with the students?
Good question. There are initial trainings, and I think what could come from that would be also initial reminders. You don't have to take too much time to remind, say, an 11th grader how to use safe to say. It's done on an app, by the way, so it's very, very quick and easy. But I think the reminders of its power and its importance make a lot of sense. The new incoming students who have to use it for the first time, they get a little more attention.
Okay, great. And then, so I don't remember what our policy is with fighting and suspensions. So is it one fight would equate into a suspension, or is it a number of things? Like, would the 9 mean that there was 9 suspensions already this year?
No, those were actually count instances of fights. There could be, well, there would be 2, at least 2 people involved, could be more.
Right. But so I guess my question is, if you get into a fight, do you automatically get suspended? I actually don't know how this works. I really don't understand how it works.
Yeah, the answer is almost always yes. It would be situation dependent, but it depends if it's a first offense versus a second or third. Yeah, the code of conduct does spell that out, and unless there's mitigating circumstances of some sort, which we do have a flexibility on, it's almost always a progressive increase in number of days.
Okay, gotcha. And so I lost my train of thought. Oh yes, so noted that it's only 9, but that is pretty significantly more than 2 years ago, and it's probably not enough data to kind of make any trends or projections from this, but anecdotally or qualitatively, are you seeing something that is kind of giving you some sort of indication of some difference or change or something else? Or do we really think this is really, I mean, I'm not displacing COVID and how that's impacted things, but I'm just trying to get to, is there anything more there that we should be aware of or be looking at?
We haven't noticed anything like that. What we have noticed in like debriefs and talking with kids is broadly the sense of isolation that everyone has felt, especially kids last year, if they were maybe hybrid or they even were virtual last year, didn't get a chance to interact with peers. And it's not just so much interacting with your friends, but it's interacting with other people your age who you don't know, and someone that comes across you, and all this anxiety, all the frustration that's building up in everybody. And somebody happens to nudge somebody the wrong way in the hallway, and all of a sudden the response is physical versus what maybe if there was a little more opportunity for socializing and not being so isolated over the last 18 months, it wouldn't be quite as immediate response to physical. We don't know of anything else other than, but there's probably some other things at play that COVID causes, and it's happening everywhere, and we just need to kind of ease, to the earlier comments, ease kids back into being part of a social network all the time.
Yeah. Have we thought about doing any kind of alternative kind of approaches like mindfulness, meditation, yoga, anything of those terms to kind of like help with centering? I know it's a little bit different and we probably don't have the time to build a lot of these into our program, but a 2-minute mindfulness kind of exercise might be helpful.
The answer is yes to maybe by a different word, different name. We have self-reflection opportunities. One person's, like word, I don't want to throw words around that get the attention of the concept. The concept is think about yourself, think about your actions, and just sort of get in touch with where everything is before you act out.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Effie. Deanne, you had some questions?
I just wanted to, on Marshall's first point about communicating with parents and letting them know what's going on. I did just want you to make the point, I think, that before the kids are sent to school, if there's like a threat the night before or overnight, it's not just you and the administration, it's also the Lower Gwinnett police who are saying this is safe, correct? The police, if it's a major incident or a major threat, they're involved and also like clear the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. We confer with them right away.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of make that point just so parents understood that it's not just the school saying yes, it's the Lower Gwinnett police are also involved. I think that's important.
Or whipping, pending.
Or whipping, exactly. Okay. And I guess the other thing was just Marshall's second point, social emotional learning in the curriculum, I think is going to be a part of the future if we're going to recover from this as a society. So yeah, we'll have to look more into that, I think, for sure.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Jim, I just had one follow-up. So the students, after they're suspended, do we require them upon return to undergo any sort of counseling? Like with one of our guidance counselors?
The answer is yes, depending on the circumstances. Broadly speaking, we have them touch, or we touch base with them. They might stop in over a course of time. I don't know that I would call it necessarily counseling as much as just sort of check-ins.
Okay, I just think it'd be helpful if our students are having some issues, that we perhaps offer them some sort of counseling rather than just sending them to something to
Agreed.
assist them through that time.
We are doing more of that now, not just in response to kids getting physical with one another, but it's brought to our attention often that somebody might need a little support. We have, I hope, as a society, gotten past the point of mental health being some sort of taboo thing where it's a weakness. That's, of course, is nonsense. And so we're our staff trained and there for students who need it.
Great, thanks, Jim. All right, well, if there's no other questions or comments, we'll move on then. Thank you so much for that report, Jim. All right, so we are now at our first public comment period, and this will be speakers on topics that are on our agenda this evening. And I don't see that we have any registered speakers in person. What about online, Katie?
We have one on Zoom, Carmina Taylor.
Okay, great. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Carmina, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. In terms of the agenda, I saw that the ESSER funds that were delineated, I think it's in Dr. Dewan's report, just questioning again ESSER 2 funds and how they're utilized, because I thought they were just specifically for the economically disadvantaged students and dealing with learning loss there. I saw in the report there was a lot of mitigation, a lot of money spent towards mitigation instead of specifically targeting the students that were economically disadvantaged. And with that, I wondered if someone could answer, where is the community stakeholder component? When you receive the ESSER funds, you're supposed to have that as a component with the district, and I don't see it anywhere. So I just wanted to point that out too. So that could be a question. And I just want to, reiterate, I'm listening to Dr. Crestfield about that we can't solve the problems of the fighting or the incidents that are happening in the school. I have been talking for at least 16 years in this district, because it's not just COVID that there's been these offenses, that Wissahickon should be a community village. In fact, in 2007, we had the Wissahickon Consortium Village, because we took all the parent groups together to work together to help the district. So I just want to ensure that, since Dr. Crestfield is putting it out there that it takes a village, that he includes alumni, he includes former parents, he includes current parents, community groups. I agree, you can't solve what's going on with these kids unless you set a tone and tenor that we're all one Wissahickon, which, by the way, I created that mantra because of the fact that we were 6 schools and that we needed to be one. So I just want to re-emphasize that there is a community stakeholder component to receiving the ESSER funds. Don't understand the ESSER 2 distribution. And if someone could answer that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmina. Katie, is there anyone else registered to speak?
Yes, we have Katie Wenger.
Katie, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. And I should have mentioned this before. Please state your name, address, municipality of residence, and the agenda topic you're commenting on.
Hello, my name is Katie Wenger. I reside in Whitpain Township, and I wanted to comment on the plan to address the increase in school fights. And not much was mentioned about the threats that they've had at the middle school and high school this year, and I definitely think that can't be overlooked. But my concern with the plan that Dr. Crestfield provided is that nowhere in that plan is the divide within our students and community addressed. So a lot of it was advocating for social and emotional learning, which I encourage all parents and educators and board members and community members to research, because there has been some, negative feedback about this. One thing being that it really isn't an appropriate mental health way to address the students' mental health, who are not only going through issues that may lead to them being involved in a fight or some other type of incident at school, but also just feeling disconnected from their peers. Amy and Zephy were much more on target with what they mentioned. Amy's point of school counseling for any child that's struggling, particularly behaviorally, I think is a must. And I think that Zephy's point about mindfulness and yoga and, meditation, that, can be shrugged off as new age, but that is what research is showing is really helpful for children when they're feeling overwhelmed, when they're having difficulty focusing and concentrating. And it certainly can be, it doesn't have to be a religious type of thing. Each child can do it in whatever manner is most helpful for them. And I know that there's plenty of parents and professionals within our district that have volunteered and are willing to come in and provide these services and can be verified as able to do so. So just taking a look at the social emotional learning again, some of the critiques out there say that it uses language of victim, victimizer, oppressor, oppressed. And I don't see how this isn't seen as further causing issues between our students and certainly in our community. And I think it also can't be overlooked, and everyone should research that it's clearly linked to critical race theory, and it's even been reported as a Trojan horse to usher in CRT. So social emotional learning is very concerning, and there are much healthier ways to provide these skills and education to our students. And Carmina was also right on target that this school board and the administration needs to bring in the community members and community groups and be bringing people together, not just making unilateral decisions that isn't involving the people that are most impacted, whether they have children or community members or alumni. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. Katie, do we have anyone else registered?
There is no one else registered on Zoom.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much to everyone for their comments. All right, then we'll move on to the board president report. And this evening, all I have is one informational item, and that's the board committee list. And you can find that at document 61A. And I have no action items this evening. I will go next to Jim's superintendent report.
Okay, thank you. The informational item is an update on our health and safety plan. And I think I'll kick that off with a look at what happened on Friday and maybe to try to clear up some misunderstanding there. As everybody knows, on Friday, we, along with many other districts in the county, had a 100% virtual instruction day. Some districts in the county had called it a snow day, in which case there was no instruction. I think we need to understand something about the virtual days and where that's going in the future. I can envision in districts all over, including here, virtual instruction days in the future, well past the pandemic. I absolutely envision traditional snow days here as well. And the point of the virtual days is now in the pandemic, we're going to have a problem staffing the buildings on Friday. We just had too many staff members calling out. In the future, if you have a real bad weather event and you have the ability to do a virtual day for 2 of those days, calling virtual day in the future prevents the district from going into June too far. That's the whole point. We love our traditional snow days. We are going to have our traditional snow days. Now, remember, we actually already used one back in September because of the hurricane. It was a hurricane day. Okay, well, let's call it a weather day. I would envision absolutely having more traditional snow days here where there's no instruction, no one's dialed into any screen, and everybody can go out and have fun outside. As well as days like Friday, where with enough notice, which we did have because we were looking at the staffing reports, we knew that we were going to have a problem. We could give parents as much notice as possible about the childcare piece. I know that's a tremendous burden, but we wouldn't be able to have the students in school on Friday. So we needed to do something. And we will look to have both traditional snow days as well as these 100% virtual days, not just to close out this school year, but in the future as well. It's a very, very valuable tool. So that's Friday. Moving forward, as you all know, we have some changes in our health and safety plan scheduled for January 24th, which is the start of the second semester, primarily in the areas of audiences or spectators, the number of people allowed in one venue at one time. Masking will still be required, but the distancing piece will be reduced. Remember, we were calculating maximum capacity previously, first semester, based on a distancing restraint. Now, we'll just have it be a normal, how many people can normally fit in there, as long as the activity is optional, such as sports, the arts, performing arts. If you don't want to go to be a spectator or in the audience for one of those things, you don't have to. You don't have that option about whether or not you want to go to school. So our mitigation protocols for school are different from optional things like after-school activities, especially compared to spectators who want to come in and watch. So those are all happening on January 24th. You've seen it didn't help that our website provider had a international outage where they and all their clients, schools and others, didn't have their access to their website. So we weren't able to share the data about the number of cases. We weren't hiding any data. We didn't have any ulterior motives. Our website was down. We were going to either send it out via email. It got up partially. We could share that out. But an important point about the data over the last 7 days is here and throughout the county, our contact tracers right now are completely swamped. They can't keep up with all of the contact tracing that's necessary. And that's happening everywhere. So case counts aren't going to be as immediate. Updates aren't going to be as immediate as people have grown accustomed to over the last however many months we've been in this thing. Something about this past week, 10 days, the Christmas effect, the New Year's effect, made it so that there were so many people out. In addition, people are choosing to be out, not because they have to isolate and quarantine, they're just anxious, I understand. So we have to sort through all of that and then do the contact tracing. So sharing that, and we Friday was a bad day staffing wise. Today was good. Tomorrow, Ms. Hay assures me tomorrow looks good, and the next day, and so forth. But we keep a close eye on this. And if it happens again, I don't want people to think like that was the end of it, and now we'll be fine. It could happen again. And we do try to share the information as much as we can. It's just that the system, be it our website or our contact tracers, got completely overwhelmed the last 7 days.
Thank you, Jim. So I do have a question for you. As far as contact tracing, what could we as a board do to support our nursing staff? Like, do we need additional help right now? Or is there anything else we could do to support them in doing this contact tracing?
We did, as you recall, hire somebody to be the district full-time contact tracer as a nurse. And we've recently put our nursing supervisor or department chair on that as well. We've asked them if they would like more contact tracers. The problem is it takes so much time to train somebody up on that and to get them familiar with our system, how to report to the schools, what schools it is. Their feeling was they would prefer to handle it themselves. And there's 2 people. That's pretty, I mean, that's, except for the last 7 days, they were handling it. A lot of work, but they were handling it. It just got, the volume just got too much.
And how much does the county help us with all of the contact tracing?
They are unable to help anymore. In the early days, they did the contact tracing, but it's been, there's the case, I mean, for months now, they've been unable to help. They're available for us to call with a question, or maybe if they hear something, they used to share information with us about an event, a soccer game or something somewhere, but way too many events now.
And the time our nurses are spending working on contact tracing, and I understand it's like one person is completely dedicated to that.
Correct.
But the other nurse, is that taking taking him or her away from their other duties?
Yes, we get a sub for her when we can. We can't get a sub contact tracer. That's a problem.
Mhm.
So we get a sub for her and her duties. But it does a little bit, yeah.
Would it help to hire another temporary nurse to assist us during this time?
It might, if this persists, if the last 7 days persist, yeah, we think about that.
Okay. And then also overall with the substitute situation, I know we're competing with other districts. We increased the rate we're offering. Are we still having difficulty though getting substitute teachers?
Yes and no, we're not as bad off as some districts that I know of that had to have a functional closing because they don't have enough staff. We have subs. They're subject to the same impact in their homes, maybe their families, their anxieties. They don't, doesn't matter how much you pay, they just don't want to, they can't maybe work. So it's better. It could be even better. Just need more quantity.
All right, who else has questions or comments for Jim?
I have a question. In the latest, or one of the communications, we said that we were going to stop contact tracing outside of the classroom, mostly because of overwhelming. But do we have any data on like and we've been contact tracing for a long time. Do we know the percentage of like cases that turn positive in like a classroom situation where both parties should be masked versus maybe a situation where they're not, like at lunch or sports? That seems more high risk to me. Do we have data on that?
I don't know that we have data, but I can tell you that in our classrooms, we're able to achieve 3 feet of distancing. And so, as you know, the rules are if you're masked 3 feet, that's not a close contact. In lunch at elementary, we're always able to get 6 feet. So that's also not necessary there. Buses and sport and after school things and weekend things. And remember, we're actually, we have to track down who was with whom at what party on Saturday night. And
That falls on our nurses?
yeah. I mean, there's no one else to, but again, they have had to send a triage a little bit the last 7 days and just take a look at what's happened in schools. Lunch at the secondary level isn't always 6 feet. That's one of the hot spots, if you will, and then the buses.
How do we contact trace at secondary lunches? Is there like a QR code they scan with their phone
I
or?
wish there was. No, it's sort of an art and a little less of a science.
So we had a Montgomery County follow the CDC guidelines to reduce the isolation period to 5 days for people that test positive. And so we're bringing kids back to school after 5 days. And they estimate about 30% of people are still infectious at that time. And I feel I would be remiss if I didn't bring up that, that guidance specifically was saying that you should keep a mask on. Well, so those people are going to be at lunch with other people and they're going to play sports maskless with other people. Is that true?
We've asked for guidance on the lunch piece because we've shared the feedback with the Office of Public Health that it would be almost impossible to find enough lunch spaces. So that piece but we haven't heard back yet. And then the sports are, because that's a voluntary event or activity, we would follow what our Suburban One League and the rest of the schools in that league do in terms of competitions.
Has there been any talk from Suburban One about implementing a temporary masking policy, given that we are at the highest case and transmission point of this entire pandemic? I feel like we're just forging on like nothing's happening, and there is something happening right now. It just seems a little crazy to me, no?
No, I hear you saying, I have not heard of talk for any changes from the league. And remember, our performing arts are going to have the same approach, which was when you're engaged in the activity, singing, dancing, I guess fencing, if you will, lacrosse, whatever, then you're mask optional. When you're not actively engaged, when you're in the back, maybe on the sidelines, on the bench, backstage, then you are masked.
Yeah, and I think that made sense when we adopted that on December 13th, and a lot has changed. This is just hard for me to swallow, sorry. I don't know. I mean, sports, yes, they're optional, but like for some kids, they're really not. They're their outlet. You know, we're talking about isolation and having all this like anger, but like sports are an outlet for people, a lot of people, to socialize, to get that energy out, to feel like belonging. And, you know, I know it's hard to say, well, put yourself at risk with this kid who's still coughing and he's going to join your sport. It's fine. Like, that's hard for me. I don't know the answer either. I just feel I need to say it because I'm sure I'll get angry emails about it, but like, this is our discussion, right? Like, we don't discuss this because this is the Sunshine Act. We're here discussing, and I'm sharing my thoughts on that. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Deanne. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I would like to second what Deanne just expressed, that when we made the decision, the situation was quite a bit different than it is now. Things don't look like they're going to get any substantially better anytime soon. I would advocate putting the brakes on relaxing any of our mitigation efforts. And also, you know, with sports and optional activities, even though they are optional and parents and students can decide, the fact that we're holding these events sort of gives us our stamp of approval. It's putting our students at risk that then is going to come back and affect numbers that can be in the classroom and healthy. And as Deanne said, if we are now relaxing mitigation efforts rather than holding the line or even increasing those efforts, then we're just going to let it roll along. And you know, sooner or later we have to realize we're in a pandemic, and that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Stephen. Ronnie?
Also from this end of the table, I agree. We can't stop with the mask. We can't get closer together. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. This is not the time to say, oh, okay, it's your choice.
Thanks, Ronnie. Anyone else? Rosetta?
Yeah, so from this end of the table, I also agree. And so one of the things that's really happening is that this variant is being very vicious in terms of transmissibility. And it might not be as serious. The effects of it are different than the Delta, but the transmission is just incredible. And the thing is that it's showing that it's going to really ramp up really fast, but it will also ramp down pretty fast. So I agree that we shouldn't probably decrease any of our mask mitigation strategies right now, and that we should just hold tight to what we're doing. And hopefully by February, things should start to settle down. So I do agree that we shouldn't relax any mask mitigations.
A good point of clarity, we actually aren't. The masking is staying the way it is. I mean, I suppose if we ever got to low or moderate, it would become optional. I know that's the case in the health and safety plan. But right now we're so far in high that that's not happening anytime soon. And as long as we're in high, masking is required.
I know, but I think like with sports, I think that, you know, anything indoor or anything with close contact really needs to be masked.
That would be a change then, because we've
Right.
been allowing that. That's been the case. What the change will be is primarily with spectators and performing arts and theater music. That will be unmasked now, and we could repeal that if we want, but spectators are still masked. The change there is a distancing for spectators. So that is scheduled to go into effect on January 24th.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify a few things to make sure that we have a common understanding. The health and safety plan updates that we voted on in December, I mean, essentially said that we, as a district, could go mask optional based on community transmission indicators, right? And if we're in low or moderate % positive, as well as cases per 100,000, then we could go mask optional. We are clearly not there. We're nowhere close to there. So our plan as adopted, we're doing what that plan says. We're in high, we're clearly mask required, and that should be in place. In terms of sports, indoor sports and all that stuff for students, we've been doing essentially what we have been doing. There wasn't like a change up or down, tighter or looser. So that's not like a new thing. The new thing that is about to go into effect is what Jim just mentioned. Our approach to audience members at performing arts type venues or events, and also with sporting events. And so that is a sort of a new thing that's a little bit separate from our health and safety plan that we contemplated last month. But I agree with everyone that it's crazy like how much has changed from like just mid-December to now. I think in mid-December, Omicron was something that we kind of heard rumblings about. And then subsequent to that, just kind of exploded. So I could understand, some misgivings about, relaxing some of our approaches to audience spacing as well as masking at district events. But I think what we need to think about as a board is that given all these concerns, we are in a position to take action if we want to, but what I would say is that if, and Deanne sort of kicked things off, if Deanne is like suggesting or recommending, some modification either to our main health and safety plan or to our approach to district events for audience members, then, we should talk about that and see if, that's something that we want to formally do as opposed to, kind of express our shared and collective concerns about all the things that are going on.
Excuse me, may I comment?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes. So as I currently play on the basketball team right now, I went through the pandemic last year, and I'm currently going through it this year on the basketball team, playing on the court with masks versus playing playing without masks. And the pandemic last year was really, really hard on athletes playing with the masks on, specifically because all of the sweat that builds up within the mask kind of just like creates a little barrier where it's extremely hard to breathe. And to be able to put the mask on adequately and properly and play the game at 100%, I really found it very hard. Like every single time I had to breathe, I would have to put my mask down, move away from everyone, and then breathe and then put it back on. Then refs would be yelling at us if they were down. And it was really hard to play with the mask on. I genuinely felt like it affected the game and it affected the way the game was played. So just to that extent, I just wanted to add that, just to let everyone know how I've yet to hear a student that I've talked to on my basketball team or just in general say how they wanted the mask while they're playing the game, because I think it really does hinder, and it's hard to play with the mask on, especially when the sweat builds up all over your mask and it's really hard to breathe.
Thanks, Morgan. All right, are there any other comments or questions?
I have one question, Jeffy.
Sure, Paul.
So, well, actually, two questions. If we were to make a change to the requirement, and we are having our players, our participants masked, would the same hold true for other teams? Could we make that requirement that visiting teams come in, they have to do the same?
I don't think we could enforce that. If we told them that our venue is masked for everybody, even the competitors, they may or may not come, but we certainly wouldn't be able to enforce that on their premises.
Okay. And the second question is, do we have any data at this point to show occurrences of COVID amongst our athletes or any of our extracurricular activities?
We could certainly count up students who have shared that they're positive. We could also share results of our contact tracing. What we can't know is how a student got positive necessarily, because it could be from that party on Saturday night. It could be from whatever they were doing on the weekend. It could be from basketball. It could be from something else. So the cause and effect is going to be very, very difficult. We could count up cases, yes, but we couldn't, I don't think we can put our finger on a cause.
And I know that contact tracing is behind, but that wouldn't help, you don't think, in this instance?
It would, again, it would help in the sense that we would identify more students who would need to quarantine for those 5 days. But we wouldn't be able to know if a basketball player got COVID, that where he got it from or she got it from.
Okay, thank you.
But Jim, on that point, have we noticed any cluster of cases, like on any particular sports team?
No, not a cluster. I mean, there have been instances, but not like a transmit in sport transmission type thing. Now that does happen though. It does happen on weekends. One of the early primary spreaders were the travel sports events that didn't pay attention to the mitigation as much as what happened in schools. So I can't say that sports broadly don't have that happen. It's not true, but our coaches, our teammates are conscientious about it. And as Morgan pointed out, it's kind of difficult while you're playing, but when you're not playing, then that's our rule here in our school is it's mask required.
Thank you. So we've heard a number of comments from different board members on this point. Does anybody have a specific request that they would like to see a specific section of one of our health and safety plan changed in some way that we could discuss? Since we do have to discuss everything, in open.
So could we possibly test athletes coming back from a COVID positive case? Could that be like and Morgan, I appreciate you sharing. I really do appreciate hearing from students and your perspective. And I do understand what you're saying. Not only that it's hard to breathe, but I do also understand that when the mask gets wet, it's really not going to be super effective, especially if you're just wearing a cloth mask anyway, below your chin, like many people do. But anyway, could we test athletes coming back, knowing that they're going to have close contact with people? Is that a possibility?
Coming back from an away basketball game?
No, sorry. No, coming back from a positive COVID case.
Oh, yes, our testing capacity at the moment is pretty strained, but we could single out, but see, then there's all these other tentacles. Do we do the same for the theater? We do the same for choir or chorus or band. What we were trying to do is treat the arts the same as sports for the reasons we spoke of in previous meetings. So in that case, we don't do that testing.
Could we don't have the capacity to do everyone that comes back, right? Because are we still doing test to stay then?
So that's a great question. The answer is there's supposed to be anytime soon some information from the Office of Public Health that speaks to test to stay and whether or not that's actually going to become mask to stay for students and whether it could be test to stay for staff. I can't answer that right. I don't know the answer, but that's something they're considering at the county level and we're waiting to hear their guidance.
Anyone else have any thoughts on this or questions?
This is Zephy. I actually I'm not opposed to Deanne's suggestion of testing someone who's been out and quarantining for 5 days prior to playing a sport that's unmasked or theater. But I think that, what Rosetta said was actually true too, because I think we're peaking or at the break of peaking right now. And I think January 24th, we're actually going to see, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but based on what others are saying, we should start seeing this peaking starting to decline. And I would say in February, we're probably still going to be at a rate where, we're probably not going to be mask optional, but our numbers are probably going to get in a much better place than they are currently. But I don't think that we should be changing the health and safety plan overall. I do think that we're in a bad situation right now, but I don't necessarily think that this is a trend that's going to hold on. And I think that if it does, if I'm 100% wrong, then we reassess at a later point. I do feel that we're in a good place with our health and safety plan. Making one provision might be something that I would consider, but I don't think I'm comfortable changing the health and safety plan more than that.
I agree with Zephy that it is going to come back down, and I'm not saying it's not. I think if I would propose anything, it would be a provision that would say, like, if we're above 10% transmission rates with 15% positivity or above with 200,000 or 200 cases per 100,000, like, we're at kind of an unprecedented point in this pandemic. And so just doing nothing feels strange to me. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just a little bit cautious, and I have been because I have chronic health conditions. And so perhaps I'm out of line, and you all can agree or disagree with me. I don't know. But for me, like, testing someone when they come back to school after a positive case makes way more sense than testing someone every other day who may have been exposed. If we're going to dole out our testing capacity, it just would make more sense in my mind to do it that way. And I'm not trying to put more on the nurses. I'm not trying to limit students in what they want to do. And yes, I would say that sports and arts should always be treated in the same way. I didn't mean to single out sports, but that would be if I would make a proposal, that would be what it would look like.
And Jim, is something like that possible with the number of tests that we have to test athletes as well as our students in the arts?
Or everyone that comes back because they're at lunch. I don't know.
So there's a couple pieces of that. One, the availability of the tests themselves, which is substantially in question at the moment. There's rumor about it being relieved and more tests on the way, but right now we don't have them. Our capacity to do that, we need to be extremely specific in terms of what cases, when, what day. If it's somebody who had symptoms 5 days ago, and now they're coming back on day 6, which is the new rules, my understanding is that if you're 5 days away from your symptoms, then your likelihood of transmitting that, although you did have it, anymore after those 5 days is extremely low. We could test that child and see if they're still positive. We test them also days 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. We test if we're going to, the danger we have here is that while I think the concepts are good and make sense, the devil's in the details there. And I can't tell our people, like, well, we've got to come up with some sort of testing regimen. We need to be, if we're going to change it, we need to be very, very specific now as to exactly what we're going to change.
Understood. Okay, thank you, Jim. All right, any other comments or questions?
I just want to sort of echo something Zephy said earlier, that I think I agree with her that I don't feel like I'm at the point where we need to, or I think we should reevaluate the health and safety plan. I think what we can do is maybe after the 24th, as we get into our February meetings, we can assess where we're at. And if things are starting to come down, great. But if things are continuing to keep rising, then I think we could reassess. I just want to stress that we are not doing nothing. We are doing a lot. We are making masks required for everyone. We are doing 3 feet distancing in classrooms. We are doing 6 feet spacing at lunch. We are doing a lot. So I don't want people to think we're doing nothing. We are doing plenty. The question is, do we need to do even more? Do we need to change the course that we're currently on? And I don't think that, given the concerns and where we're at now, I have some of those concerns, but I don't think we're at the point where we need to or should change the actual health and safety plan. If we want to change some of the protocols to like audience and distancing and masking at school district events, I'm more open to that. And would consider that, but not for the health and safety plan at this point.
Thank you, Joe. And I think that is a good thing to do, is wait till after the 24th and see where we're at that point. Thank you.
Amy, if I may,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I understand. It doesn't, what I'm hearing doesn't sound like we're looking for a wholesale change in the health and safety plan. We are looking, what I'm hearing are comments about whether there should be changes to certain aspects of what we had decided to change, whether it was for specific activities. The health and safety plan isn't changing. We are mask mandated depending on the rate within the community. And we haven't seen anything to change where we are. The question is, from what I'm understanding from my other board members, is do we make a change based on certain activities or conditions within the district? The one area I have a little bit of a concern, and maybe I don't agree with my other board members, is I don't think any of us know where this peak is. And I think it's very dangerous to say publicly, really, well, by the end of the month, we should be out of it. We don't have any idea, because a month ago, we had no idea where we were going to be right now. Our hope is that it'll be gone tomorrow, right? I mean, everybody would like it all to be gone tomorrow and the slope would completely fall. We don't know that that's the case or not. In order to make a change, the next time we could do that, other than an emergency meeting, would be at our next meeting on January 31st, I believe. So if any of the board members are thinking that maybe something needs to change with regard to specific activities, January 31st, which is 3 weeks away, may be an opportunity to look at it and see where we are, depending on whether we wanted to go an emergency route, which doesn't appear that that's what we're going to do at the moment. But I think what we see is this is fluid. This is changing daily. I mean, the hope is that that this will sort of work itself out, for lack of a better term, because I don't know the medical terminology, but if not, it could be here, it may not be. So instead of saying, well, let's go one route or another, we're going to drive everybody crazy by trying to implement something that may change in a day or a week or a month. I think we have to look at it in terms of what is our comfort level. If somebody is uncomfortable with it and they want to bring something to the board, they're more than welcome to, but it seems like it's very specific to certain activities or things we do within the school, as opposed to a wholesale change in what we've already decided. And I want to make sure that we're clear on that, the plan itself doesn't change. It's maybe tweaks to certain activities if board members bring that to the attention of the school district. And the next time we would do that would be on January 31st, within a few weeks.
Exactly. And thank you for that clarification, Marshall. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, then we will go ahead and move on to the Assistant Superintendent report. Dr. Dwan.
Good evening. I don't have any informational items or action items on the agenda this evening.
Great. Does anybody have any questions over Dr. Dwan this evening?
I do want to make a comment, Dr. Dwan. I appreciate the information you provided to us regarding the pilot program, regarding students who are at home and are virtual. And I think it should be noted that we did receive information regarding the students who were in the program. It appears it was about 6 to 9 students based on what I'm reading here. And the feedback generally, when there was a concern, was that they had difficulty hearing and seeing. And so from what I understand from the district, the administrative level, there's a feeling that it is not the optimal way to proceed virtually. However, that being said, it appears that there were some good things that came out of this, that there are going to be some increases in student teacher time for those who are going to be out. And I think that part of the problem that we've had is that people want to understand what we're going to be doing. And I think since you're involved with it, maybe you could explain how that's going to increase, because it appears from what we have here the areas where we think it could be helpful, maybe in certain circumstances there was one parent who thought it was great, but from the student perspective, they had difficulty either hearing or seeing. Those in class had some problems with some of the students online and being maybe distracted during the class. Ultimately, I think we have to look from the perspective of we're in a century where we should be looking at technology in ways that we can be able to use this, whether now or in the future. And I think it's something that we should continue to look at, whether we have the ability to today or this week or this month. We should continue to look at these things. And what I am interested in is the fact that we are increasing the ability of students and teachers to get together to make sure that those questions are answered and they get the support that they need. So I know you don't have an agenda item, but I think you might be able to more accurately depict where it is that this went and where it could go and how it could be helpful.
Thank you. Especially in light of the increased student absences that we've seen after winter break, our administrative team worked to identify additional ways to provide more time for teachers to connect with students. We're still this evening actually fleshing out the details of that plan, but that will include at least 2 to 3 times per week teachers having time in the schedule, and it does require a shift in the schedule. And so this plan is a plan that we anticipate having in place through the end of January. Again, going back to the thought of hopefully seeing a decline in those increased student absences. At the end of January, we'll reassess where we are. But that 2 to 3 times per week where teachers will have built into the schedule opportunities to connect directly with students who are currently in quarantine, to provide them not just with the opportunity to connect with them. We know that's an important element in terms of the social and emotional needs of students, but also to support them with their instructional content that they've missed. And again, that does require a change in the schedule, and information will be coming to families this week in terms of students who are out to make them aware of how to connect with their teachers and when to get that support. But we did see the pressing need because of the increase in student absences.
And you did make an interesting point that there will be a reassessment of this. And I really do think, I mean, I've been rather vocal about this because I hear from a lot of people who are concerned about this, that I think we do need to continue on a path toward finding the right technology, whether the numbers increase or decrease over time. We're at a point I mean, we're one of the top districts in the Commonwealth. We should be able to figure out ways to engage all of our students, whether they're at home or in school, and finding the right technology and the right balance to do so that none of these kids are left behind no matter what their circumstances.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Stephanie. I had one comment. I wanted to thank you for working with the team to getting, I don't know if it's happening at the middle school as well, but at the high school level, midterms were, I don't know, canceled. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but they will not be taking place. And I'm thankful for this because I know that was a source of conflict for people who were debating whether they should quarantine, how much they should be quarantining, should they go back to school because they were missing work, schoolwork. So I do feel that that eliminated that stress, that buzz that was occurring right after the holiday break. I appreciate that fluidity in that thinking, and I think that was the very right thing to do. So very much appreciated, especially from a high school mother.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Stephanie.
If I could chime in, I would like to second that because I've actually been out quarantining for the past week. Monday, today was my first day back in school, but while I was quarantining, the only thing I could worry about was missing review time for my midterms. So really the canceling of midterms was so helpful. Not because of, obviously canceling midterms is great for any student to hear, but especially because I was in quarantine and just like already having to deal with physical stress and worrying about my actual health. And then upcoming midterms just added a layer of stress, which luckily is removed. And also, I wanted to add in with the program that you were just talking about that is coming up with connecting students at home with their teachers. I just think that is such a good idea because I know I didn't have that opportunity necessarily this past week when I've been quarantining, and that made it just extremely challenging. Like I really needed to get in touch with teachers, and not being able to do so, you just keep falling more behind. So I think that program is just really great and looking out for students, and I know that we would really appreciate that.
Thank you, Carly.
Dr. Dewan, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to follow up. I know I've asked at a couple board meetings about this, but I wanted to see where we were at in terms of being able to have volunteers back in the classroom, like parents in kid writing in kindergarten to help our kindergarten teachers, or even parents to come in to maybe help students with reading who may have fallen behind during COVID. Have we made any progress with being able to have volunteers come in for some very specific reasons?
To be honest, those conversations have paused given the spike in cases following winter break.
Sure. Perhaps for the spring, it could be something we could look at again.
We certainly all want to get back to that. Please be assured that our building principals and our central office administration know the value that volunteers bring to the school setting, and we know how impactful that support can be for our students in a variety of ways. And so we absolutely will continue that conversation and ensure that we can get back to that because we know how important that is.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, well, if we have another question, oh, Dan?
Sorry, I just wanted to second what Marshall said. I think the last thing I want to do is add more to teachers' plates. That's not the goal. But I do think that the pandemic has fundamentally changed the way that we're going to be delivering education in the future. Like, I think it's here to stay. Not obviously in building is best, but we don't know how this is going to go over the next course of a few years. And I've also heard from a lot of parents who really feel the need for the people their kids feeling connected to the classroom. Actually, I've only heard from parents. Carly or Morgan, do you want this? Do you want a camera in the classroom while you're quarantining or isolated at home or sick? Is that something you find appealing?
It's a complicated matter because I know that teachers, I try to stay in touch with my teachers as much as I can, just on the level of I ask them what works for them and what doesn't. And I know a lot of my teachers are opposed to a camera in the classroom, but I think there's pros and cons to it. I know for me, it would have been beneficial for the last part of my quarantine, but for the first half, I'd say I was just too sick to log on to a class and try to participate. So there's pros and cons. I think if that were to be implemented, it would have to be run by the teachers, because I know of a few teachers who are opposed to it. But on the other hand, I've had a few teachers who have actually given me that option to just even just FaceTime a classmate during class to work for labs that require collaborative group work. And that was incredibly helpful. So I do think it would be helpful because I know on Friday when we had that virtual day, kids who were quarantined across the district had the opportunity to log on to class. And if we hadn't gone virtual that day or had that option, they wouldn't have been able to attend and would have missed more work. So I think it would, again, there's just pros and cons. It would help students fall less behind, but it would definitely need to be run by the teachers first.
I definitely agree with everything that Carly's saying. It's very, very difficult to kind of work around it because I personally I'm not really that opposed to it, but I think a lot of other students may be opposed to it. And I think there will be a lot of, I don't want to say backlash, but I don't think a lot of students would appreciate the cameras in class. But I completely see how it could be useful to the students that are at home, because I know when I've been sick, it was very difficult to catch up on schoolwork without having to actually have that teacher like interaction, like being able to on spot ask them a question. So that to that point, it could be very useful, but I don't know that a lot of students would overall like the cameras be in the classroom.
Amy, I just want to clarify for Carly and Morgan, what we're talking about is not akin to what you experience in a virtual learning day. What we are talking about is while you're quarantining, if the teacher turned on their webcam on the laptop on their desk, but then otherwise went about teaching the class, you would not have any ability to interact or participate. You can only just like hear and see. That's the example we're talking about. So I just want to make it clear.
You're right. That makes more sense. I guess even to that extent, it might be helpful. I didn't even think honestly about safety concerns or concerns about students and privacy in school. That's a really good point. I'm sure that, I guess if you were running it from a teacher's laptop, there's a way where you like couldn't see any of the other students. If I'm understanding it correctly, you would just see like the teacher and their lesson plan on the screen. Even that I think would be helpful. I know there's just limits with not being able to directly talk to your teachers, but I know my teachers at least have been extremely understanding. They want to talk to their students who are quarantined but can't, so they understand the limits. It's a mutual understanding, and teachers really have been great, so I appreciate that, and all of their efforts have been super helpful, at least for me. There's, I guess that it wouldn't be as beneficial as like a normal virtual learning setting that we're used to, but obviously that isn't possible. So I don't know, I just think there needs to be resources for students who are quarantining. We would just need to figure out exactly what are the best resources to utilize.
I agree with everything that Carly just said. The resources, I'm not really sure what resources are out there for us to be able to make this happen, or if it's even able to be applied. But I like the sound of being able to hear and listen in live, because I feel like when things are happening live, I get the best information from that teacher, and I'm able to use that to study with. And that's definitely the best, but I'm not really sure about how to go about it.
All right, thank you, Carly and Morgan. Any other comments on this or questions? No? Okay, then we'll move on to the board solicitor report. Michelle?
Hi, thank you. I do not have any informational items tonight, but I do have 4 action items for settlement agreements. I believe we reviewed at the previous work session. So I'm looking for a motion to approve action items 9B1 through 4.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion, it's been seconded. Any comments or questions? Okay, then can we go ahead and all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the motion's passed. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move now on to the board secretary report. Wade?
Thank you very much. We have no informational items, and we have 10 regular meeting minutes and other meeting minutes to approve. 3 for racial equity. Number 4 is the audit, cross out, and finance. It should just say audit. The next is the finance committee that we had also on the 29th. And we had a facilities and transportation meeting on the 29th. And then more recently, the reorg and work session on the 6th, regular board meeting on the 13th, policy committee on the 20th, and the racial equity committee on the 20th as well. So all in all, it's approval of action items 10B1 through 10. And I would request a motion for that.
Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a seconded to approve action items 10B1 through 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to the board treasurer report. Wade?
Thank you. No action, informational item, and the action item is the request for acceptance of minuting the treasurer's report for November 30th, 2021. per document 11-1.
Do I have a motion to approve action item 11B1?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, it passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the Director of Human Resources report, Danielle.
Hi, good evening. For tonight's HR report, there are no informational items. This evening, I'm seeking approval for action items 12B1 through 12B6. Item 1 includes retirements, resignations, terminations, appointments, leaves, and status changes of staff, as well as extracurricular resignations. Items 2 and 3 are for approval of additions to the volunteer and substitute lists. Item 4 is the approval of the addendum to our agreement with STS, Substitute Teacher Service, to add instructional assistants. This will help us cast a wider net for subs needed in our special education classrooms throughout the district. Item 5 is the approval of 8 temporary kindergarten classroom assistants positions. These positions will be paid for using ESSER funds for the 21-22 and 22-23 school years only. And finally, item 6 is for the approval of an increase to the transportation substitute van driver rate to $20 per hour. This concludes my HR report for this evening.
Thank you, Danielle. All right, can I have a motion to approve action items 12B1 through 6?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Danielle, I did want to ask about the kindergarten aides. What are we going to, how are we going to be utilizing those aides?
Sure. Just like many things with COVID, we recognize that the impacts of COVID were substantial for kids entering into kindergarten that are in kindergarten now and that will be entering into, next year. So just lack of, pre-K, lack of ability to have the supports needed for academics. So this will help in the classroom, help the kindergarten teacher. And Dr. Dewan, if there's anything else I missed, I'm happy to have you explain it.
Thank you. That was a good summary. The only thing I would add is going back to the social and emotional needs of those young students. And that's another way that these positions will support students in kindergarten this year and next year. We know that there have been increased concerns around that.
Thank you. And there's 8 of them. So I assume it's 2 per building?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, well, we have a motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion's passed. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to our committee reports. First, we have our communications committee report. Zephy?
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Katie. So some numbers here to review. So this is on campus in-person reporting for the current period of December 27th through January 7th. And you'll see 50 for this week. The next slide is off campus, and here is cases that were reported outside of school, and the cases are also in that period of December 27th through January 7th. And here we're at 108. Do note that this is mostly coming in through that online form that was sent out to parents and guardians to self-report. So it's I would call this more of a self-reported number. So it's only as good as the people who are reporting it. So it might be, I would say, may not be 100% on, accurate. Next slide. So this is quarantining and isolation for our students. The snapshot for January 6th, we were at 228 students in quarantine or / isolation. And that's at the 4.58%. So fair amount of students out. This next slide I read wrong initially, but it is our staff who are quarantining and in inside isolation, and it's 22. And that's at 3.12%. So this is a new slide. Katie will be also including this in our website under the COVID section. And this will be a way for us to track our district level transmission status. And going back to what we were talking about earlier about our health and safety standard plan, our transmission levels have to be in low or moderate for 2 consecutive weeks before we can go into mask optional. As you can see here, we have the data starting December 2nd, ending at 12/3, and in all of those instances, we were high. So obviously, if we were in the new plan, which we are not, we're still in the old plan where we're always masked, but if we were in the new plan, we would not be moving out of masking at this point in time in classrooms. So this is another good way for us to kind of assess where we are with transmission levels so that we can see if levels are changing from week to week. And the color grid there is to help you understand at what level we're at. And then I think the rest are the explanations, right, Katie?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any questions with some of this information that's being reported for this week?
Katie, I would just ask, the numbers that we have, those are, I think it's up through January 6th. So we do now know from over the holidays, we've gotten all of our reported incidents.
I think they're still coming in almost by the minute, it seems like, as our nurses are trying to catch up still. But I'm gathering them every day and updating our dashboard the best that we can.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate you putting that new slide in as well. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, Steffi, do you have anything else?
Just one other informational item. We did have a communications meeting last week. One of the core purposes of that meeting was to discuss the update to our district website. There's going to be a fairly large kind of exercise and project so that we can kind of reboot or reassess our website. There's going to be more regular updates and meetings occurring about this website, and I will pass the information as we get through the various points in our stages. Obviously, right now we're in discovery, and one of the things that was discussed was a change in provider. As discussed earlier, we did have some outages that didn't only impact Wissahickon. I mean, it impacted many other schools and other, people. But we are looking at different ways, different platforms, different providers. So that it's a fairly large project that is going to be undertaken by the communications team. That's it.
Thank you, Zephy. Again, any questions or comments for Zephy?
Zephy, I just wanted to add to one of the things we talked about in the meeting that I just wanted to highlight was the possibility of adding to our website meeting briefs from the school board. And I thought that was really exciting, just a more concise version of like what's going on in the district so that people have that more accessible to them. And I thought, we talked about that. I thought it was a good idea. And I hope that we can make that happen soon.
Yeah. Thanks. I think we talked about a lot of great things. I'm getting excited, but it's a little far out. But yeah, some things, Kristen felt like some things we could implement sooner and some things might be bigger projects. So we'll see how we get through all the different assessments.
Well, thank you very much. All right, so we'll move on to our Curriculum and Technology Committee. Ronnie?
There are no informational items, but Dr. Dewan, you have your whole list of action items. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, this evening we'll be seeking a motion to approve action items 14B1 through 5. Item 1 is the high school program of studies, which was an informational item at the December 13th board meeting. And the document has been publicly published on our website since then. Item 2 is approval to accept and expend the federal and state grant funds for the 21-22 school year in the total amount of $3,762,626. And table 14.2 outlines the awarded funds, as well as our tentative plans for using those funds. You'll see the increase, as you may know, this is an annual approval process. This year, certainly the number is a lot bigger, and that is because the ESSER 2 funds are included in this tentative plan use, as well as the ARP ESSER funds. And in that document 14.2, you'll see information about how we tentatively plan to use those funds. We've collected input from our staff, our administrators, and hearing feedback from board meetings such as this over the course of the last several months, including conversations with parent groups such as our One WISP parent meetings that we've had, and the collection of those informational conversations where we've listened to what is needed this year, what is needed in our schools, what is needed for our students. And so you'll see there, in particular, the ARP ESSER funds. You heard about the additional kindergarten aide positions, and that's listed among the items there, as well as the continuation of the academic response coordinator position, which was initially instituted last year to support our students who are historically marginalized and ensuring that they have access to the resources and supports that they need. You'll see additional items such as the additional reading specialists, which we have talked about at the board meetings and previously were approved by the board for us to move forward in adding those positions to support our students' reading needs that are due to the the impact of the pandemic. So the variety of ways in which we tentatively plan to use those funds are included in document 14.2. Item 3 is a request to approve for us to purchase the CrowdStrike Complete, which is a complete software package for providing active protection from computer viruses such as malware attacks. It does also include another layer of protection that we've not had in the past for breach control, which is the software continuously monitors the network, the servers, and the endpoint devices to watch for any vulnerabilities and external attacks on our system. That package also includes 24/7, 365 monitoring of our servers and our staff devices. And that annual subscription will be added to the technology budget moving forward. Item 4 is a request of approval for outplaced educational services and tuition costs for the 21-22 school year listed in document 14.4, and information was provided to the board in a memo last week, excuse me. And item 5 is approval for the high school robotics team is seeking to attend an extended field trip travel for the FIRST Robotics. FIRST is an acronym, FIRST, Robotics Championship in Houston, Texas. And of course, that would be dependent upon it being deemed safe for students to travel at that time. And that is in document 14.5. And so this evening we'll be seeking approval. We're looking for a motion for action items 14B1 through 5. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ronnie and Dr. Dewan. So do we have a motion to approve action items 14B1 through 5?
So moved.
Second.
So the motion's been made and we have a second. Do we have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question on item 14B3. When you that's the CrowdStrike software, cybersecurity software. How is that software package selected?
The details of that process I probably could not provide at length, but I can say that the district had previously begun exploring this software well before now, and are recently only moving forward with the request for it. But in terms of the process, I could certainly explore that and get that information to you.
Yeah, I'm just curious if it was if there was like a competitive RFP, or if it came from a recommended list from the IU, or Or what? I mean, I assume that there's lots of different cybersecurity packages. I'm just curious as to why this one was selected versus another one.
I think Dr. Dewan hit on the head. I think in addition, we've been using it as a trial basis to make sure that it's been working effectively for us for the past period of time. And I do think that there's different options, but they did select this one as the best and most appropriate for the district.
Okay. And the $135,000 purchase price, the detailed document made reference to like an annual service fee. The 135 is a one-time cost, I assume. And then there's another annual fee separate.
Yes, I do believe that is the case. Yes.
What do you, when you were Wade, do you guys know what the annual, I guess, fee is for the package?
So I think that the total cost is going to be pretty close to the 135 per year. I don't think there's going to be a significant discount after the initial year term. This is pretty expensive software, but it is important that the district run this type of software in order to hopefully not have outages in the future.
Okay, so wait, we're saying this is 135 is an annual recurring cost?
Yes, it is very likely going to be added to the budget going forward.
Okay.
And Wade, the company that we're currently using for cybersecurity, it's not this company, correct?
I apologize, I didn't catch the beginning of that.
So we currently, I assume, have a company doing cybersecurity for us, correct?
So what we, and again, I agree with Dr. Dewan, at some point, we're going to have to, get back to you with these technical questions, but we have much less sophisticated and 24/7 software that is running. And this is much more robust and all-inclusive software based on the experiences that we've had.
So like an incident we had a few weeks ago where we lost access to email for a few days, something like that would be protected. We'd be protected against that in the future with this type of program?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other comments or questions? If not, we have a motion. It's been seconded. So all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, the motion passed. Thank you. All right, next we have our Facilities and Transportation Committee report. Joe, I know you are our new chair. I don't know if you want to take the lead or have Wade.
I wasn't able to attend the January 5th Bluebell meeting, so I believe Wade, you were there. Maybe you could give us a recap of how that went.
Sure, thank you. Much of the information that was shared with the board previously at a facilities meeting, so you probably got 90% of the details at that prior meeting. The audience primarily was the Bluebell interested community. And the beginning of the meeting talked about the historical trends that we've been seeing in enrollment capacity, really looking back to where we were with Stony Creek, and at that time also noting that despite setting a path for Stony Creek, knowing that Bluebell potentially was going to be where it is actually today, which is over capacity. So that was sort of the kickoff of the meeting. Then we discussed, as the Bluebell community isn't surprised about the fact that Bluebell is over capacity. We talked about the fact that we're obtaining the 2 modular classrooms. We talked about the placement of them. And then we talked about the 2 options at that point for the overall district would be redistricting or an addition of Bluebell. We showed a potential site for where an addition would occur, and that it would be much like the Stony Creek addition in concept, which would be a very large multi-purpose center, which would increase the core of Bluebell, which would be needed. And then the renovation of the old cafeteria and gymnasium space into classroom, creating the classroom capacity which would be needed. Dr. Crisfield specifically noted to the community that just adding classes, here or there wouldn't really help the core facilities at Bluebell, which is really what is needed. And I guess in final, we had several very good questions, detailed questions about whether or not we'd be leveraging some of the plans that we've had at Stony Creek, and then specific questions about the modulars, and then the renovation and the transition plans. There weren't, I don't think, as many questions about redistricting.
All right, thanks for the recap, Wade, and definitely more information to come as we determine a longer term solution for dealing with the enrollment growth at Bluebell. I mean, the good news is that the district is growing and increasing. That's a sign of a thriving and well-regarded district. The bad news is that we have to figure out how to accommodate all the new kids. But again, more to come, and we will be sure to engage the community along the way. Thanks, Wade.
Great. Thanks, Joe and Wade. Any questions from anyone or comments? All right, well, then we'll move ahead to our Finance Committee report. David?
Thanks, Amy. Finance Committee has no informational items tonight. We have 3 action items that we're asking for approval. Action item 16B1 is approval of the financial reports per document 16-1. Item 2 is approval of the financing team consisting of Fox Rothschild as solicitor and bond counsel, and PFM as financial advisor for the purpose of obtaining approximately $9.8 million for the addition at the Stony Creek Elementary School, and if needed, renovations at the middle school and turf fields project at the high school per document 16-2. And then item 3 is approval of a list of payments issued for the month ending November 30th, 2021 per document 16-3. If there are any questions, I would direct those to Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, David. All right. Do we have a motion to approve action items 16B1 through 3?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion. It's been seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
I just have a quick question for Wade. On item 2, when it talks about the Stony Creek, the middle school, but then it also says, and the turf field project if needed. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, I apologize. It probably just is my poor English skills, but what I'm really trying to get at is we had always looked at having Stony Creek be 2 offerings of approximately 10 million each, because the total project's about 20 million. In the meantime, we've been able to pay for many of the bills through current operating and additional transfers that have gone through capital reserve. So the 9.8 is my guesstimate as to how much we're going to have from Stony Creek that's going to be in need. However, it's possible that we aren't using all the contingencies and various other funds. So if there's any remaining proceeds left from the 9.8, we could roll that over into either the middle school project or the turf project if we had that need for those projects. Meaning essentially, if we have extra money left and we word the bond documents appropriately, we can roll that money into those projects. So that's what it's meaning.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you for the question.
Thank you for that clarification, Wade. Are there any other comments or questions? No? All right, well, we've had a motion and seconded, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the motion's passed. Thank you. All right, next we'll move on to the Policy Committee report. Marshall?
Thank you, Amy. Just to start, we had a policy committee meeting back on December 20th, where we talked about revisions, changes, and deletions for multiple policy provisions in the 300 series having to do with staff. The revisions included areas such as the HIV infection policy, conduct and disciplinary procedures, educator misconduct, issues having to do with gifts, issues having to do with tobacco product and vaping, as well as review of personnel files. There were some revisions to those particular policies. There were 2 PSBA recommended changes, and then there were 3 district recommended changes regarding titling and the organizational chart, admission of students, and educational equity. The remaining discussion were regarding deletions of some of those policy provisions that became outdated based on the updated revisions or changes. So that's what occurred at the December 20th meeting. And tonight, I am looking for a motion to approve the first reading of the 6 revisions that we discussed, as well as the 2 changes, which were PSBA recommended, and the 3 district recommended changes, as well as the deletions in B1, I should say 17B1 through 21.
Thank you, Marshall. So can I have a motion to approve action items 17B1 through 21?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any comments or questions? No? All right. Well, then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the motion's passed. Thank you. All right, we'll move now on to our Racial Equity Oversight Committee. Paul?
Thanks, Amy. We have no action items this evening. By way of information, we had a committee meeting on October 20th. The primary agenda item was an administration update on staff diversity. And I'm going to ask Dr. Dewan to give us just a brief overview of what the report included.
Thank you. At that meeting on December 20th, Dr. Crisfield, Ms. Latour, and I presented staff demography data and talked about the district's effort for recruitment and retention. And as Mr. Badger mentioned, the topic was staff diversity. So we presented the data around teachers of color in terms of national data, state data, and regional data, of course, as well as our district data, to identify where the needs, or rather to demonstrate or illustrate that there is a need. There is a need for us to ensure that our staff mirrors our student body, and right now it does not. And so we talked about the current recruitment measures that are in place, and there were a variety of things that we discussed around that topic, making sure that we are maintaining affiliation with various recruitment organizations, looking inward to identify ways to further develop our Grow Your Own program, which helps to create a pipeline for current Wissahickon students to come back and be teachers in our district. There are other programs in our district that help to encourage and promote students and developing their interests around being an educator. We also talked about retention goals and really ensuring that we are focusing our attention to find ways to help our staff of color who are in our district to help to feel that sense of belonging, to ensure that we can help them to retain those team members on our team. We listened to feedback from the committee, and we took all of those ideas, and we will share and have shared those ideas with the District Equity Planning Committee. We have a subcommittee called the Recruitment and Retention Subcommittee. And so our team members on that subcommittee will then take all of the ideas and feedback from the board's oversight committee to see what can be then fleshed out and come to fruition to ensure that we are moving forward with the goal of helping our data to match our staff data, match our demographic data for our students. We know the importance of ensuring that students see staff who look like them. And so that was the bulk of the conversation at that meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Dewan. It was an excellent report and discussion that ensued afterwards. And it's indicative of, I think, the commitment that the administration, the district is putting on the effort of equity and diversity to improve conditions for students, staff, and all involved. So we appreciate that and look forward to more to come.
Thank you for that report, Paul, and thank you, Dr. Dewan. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right, well, thank you again. All right, now we'll move on to the report of our board representatives. Extracurricular, we just recently had this assigned, so I don't know if anybody here has any sort of extracurricular report. So we'll move on to the North Monco Technical Career Center. Ronnie or David?
Sorry, at the last meeting at North Monco, we revisited and reapproved the health and safety plan for that institution. And most of the rest of the agenda was routine personnel and curriculum.
Does anybody have any questions for David or Ronnie? Nope. And I jumped over mine MCU Board of Directors, but we don't have a meeting until later this month. And I'll also be handling our MCIU Legislative Committee report going forward. Zephy, what about the PSBA? Do you have any update on that?
No update at this time.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. All right, then we will move on to our second public comment period, which can be on any school-related topic. As a reminder, we'll have a maximum of 5 speakers on the same topic, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And again, as a reminder, it's not the board's practice to engage in dialogue with speakers. When appropriate, we will follow up with responses on the board's district website. When coming to the podium or appearing online, please make sure you state your name, your address, and municipality of residence. All right, so in person, we have 1 person registered, Maureen Bogut.
Me again?
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Maureen Bogut with Payne Township. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but after hearing Dr. Chrisfield talk and a few other comments about the health and safety plan, I felt I had to speak a little bit more. The school board, our educators, you're here to educate our children. And it seems like we're getting deeper and deeper into the mire of health and safety and functioning as the Department of Health. I was sort of surprised to hear from Dr. Chrisfield that Montgomery County doesn't help with contact tracing. That's what comes as a shock to me. I would think that would be one of the things that they do. So that's unfortunate. And our nurses, as you know, are overwhelmed because everybody's getting COVID despite vaccinations and all the like. So we're going to have to live with this. And one of our neighboring districts, I wanted to share with you, the Central Bucks County School District, their superintendent wrote a letter effective January 3rd with their health and safety policy is basically eliminating contact tracing. I mean, they're simplifying this. They're trying to get back to being educators and focusing on the education of the children, not the health and safety, and trying to implement all of these mitigation strategies. Not that I'm not trying to be safe, but they're putting it back on the public health board. So basically, I sent this to all of you. You probably all got that. Hopefully you read the email I sent to you. So basically, masking will remain the choice of students and families. This is from, again, Central Bucks County, and also Council Rock is the same way. Council Rock School District. These are huge districts in Bucks County, just 2 miles over the border. The people are functioning in a normal fashion, basically. So masking will remain the choice of students and families. We encourage families to make decisions pertaining to masking in consultation with their pediatrician or local health care providers. CBSD, or Central Bucks, will report confirmed positive cases to Bucks County Health Department for all COVID-19 related investigations. The district will not perform contact tracing and has no authority to issue quarantine or isolation orders. And they refer to quarantine in terms of, as we mentioned before with the PA Supreme Court, refers to masking as a partial quarantine. So they refer to masking in a similar fashion. Then if any student, and then it's just more common sense things, any student or staff who feels unwell, experiences COVID symptoms should stay home. No student or staff member should come to work when they're sick in the best interest of the health and well-being around them. If symptoms persist, seek the advice of your healthcare provider. The school's not telling people what to do. They're not trying to give the parents advice. They're telling them, talk to your doctors. And it's putting the burden of contact tracing back on the health department, not in the school. So, you know, here we're focusing on hiring nurses, and I mean, it's just getting more and more complicated. And as Deanne said, this is here to stay, but I see it in a different way that we have to learn to live with it and get our kids back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Katie, do we have anyone online?
We have 2 hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Who's our first person?
The first person is R. Lowe.
Arlo, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Please state your name and your municipality residence. Thank you.
I can see that their microphone is unmuted, but there's no sound.
Okay, let's move on to our next speaker then. Who's that?
We have Jamie Erfel.
Okay, Jamie Erfel, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Jamie Erfel. I'm from Woodpayne Township. I really have more of a question. I was looking on the board meeting agenda items, and I didn't see anything being noted about discussing masking kids in sports. Is that something that we are discussing? I'm just confused and wanted a little clarification. Is that something that's being voted on or discussed? Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jamie. And going back to Arlo, are we able to get him or her?
Let me try again. Arlo is unmuted and should be able to speak.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can, yes.
Okay, great. I'm sorry about that. My name is Rebecca Lowe, and I live in Ambler currently. I'm also a Wissahickon alumni, class of 1992. I actively also raise my 10-year-old niece who attends Shady Grove. It's my understanding that Wissahickon next year intends to eliminate the cultural and language program for 6th graders, as well as decrease the 7th and 8th grade cultural and language program by 50%. I hope this is not true, but you know, Wissahickon, since I've graduated, has been championing cultural and language proficiency and competency. By doing this, you will decrease that. You know, American students are already behind globally as far as being single language speakers. Most, you know, developed countries start second or third languages in elementary school, where we start in middle school. So at that point, we're already at a disadvantage. The older you get, the more difficult it is to learn a second language. People who speak single language, who are in economics, socially, earn less money. I myself worked for the federal government and also was a Spanish language teacher. And I always earned more because I spoke a second and third language than my colleagues. So I just want to understand why this is happening. I mean, I understand that, you know, we're pushing STEM. STEM is very important, but STEM is important globally as well as learning second and third languages. And if we discontinue our, you know, our progress towards teaching our children at a younger age, then we are going to put them at an economic disadvantage as well as a social disadvantage as they get older and look for economic security and social understanding. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Katie, is there anyone else registered?
There are no other speakers registered on Zoom at this time.
Okay, thank you. We have no one else registered in person. So then we'll move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is board comments. Do we have any board comments this evening? No? All right. Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.